Is AI editing really ruining photography? Let's ask some friends. So as you can see, we are here in Las Vegas, Nevada for WPPI. A number of different photographers around. I'm speaking at the Imagine booth. I was a somewhat early adopter, not a complete early adopter, of AI editing for my wedding photography. What that means is that I come home from a wedding day and I just let Imagine do everything for me. And this does a number of things. One, it allows me to turn around my work extremely fast. Two, it saves me a lot of money. I used to use a real human editor, and the results are honestly quite comparable. Did you trust AI in the beginning? What was your first impression when you first heard that robots were going to be editing images? Did you believe it could be done? Did you believe it could be as good as what you did?
I've always been a tech guy, so I thought it would be cool, but I was ready for, you know, like, oh, these photos are trash. I was just waiting for it.
What was the first experience like?
It was actually mind-blowing. Like, I was actually surprised it was able to do as well as it did, honestly. Honestly, better than most of the people I've had edited photos before.
I'll put their names on the screen.
I immediately accepted because anything that is going to make my life easier, I'm down for. I don't think it's ruining photography, it's making my life easier. Like, especially with the mask for Imagine, like when I run my whole wedding through it, like even if it's not perfect with what they did with the mask, it's already created. So it's already saved me 6 or 7 seconds, because every time you click on the photo, you have to press the mask and wait for it to find people. But if you've already run it through Imagine, it already found it. So it saves you that many seconds on top of all the other seconds, because it's already like 98% perfect. For me, at least.
So there are a few different ways that you can use Imagine. You can build your own profile to have it edit exactly as you would, and the more you edit with it, the more refined that profile is going to be. So you upload your images, it understands what you do in certain situations, and it will replicate that for you when it sees future similar images. And then you fine tune it and you re-upload the gallery at the end so it knows what it did a little bit wrong and how to tweak it in the future. The other option is what I do, and I actually use one of the built-in talent profiles. And the reason I do this rather than building my own profile is because I use a different preset depending on the wedding venue. So if I'm outside at a vineyard, I'm going to use a different preset than I would if I was in some sort of medieval castle. And because of this, my edits are a little bit all over the place, and I could build an individual profile for each of them. But I've found just using warm and creamy and then adding a preset that changes my colors a little bit. So I leave all the exposure, the shadows, everything that Imagine does to that the same. And then I just add my preset on top of that that modifies the colors to be exactly what I want. Let's go talk to another friend. Were you skeptical?
Never. I trust robots.
You're never skeptical?
Never, no. Who doesn't trust robots? AI editing with Imagine has been nothing but good things. Like, even now they've got an app that looks really pretty and is like cohesive branding and really easy to navigate. But even back when they had an alpha product that was like an awful, almost as bad as a terminal prompt for like a computer scientist to get in there and like mess around, the results have remained consistently fantastic and getting better. But they have always led in AI editing, even from the early days. Like, whatever they've done to train their model and then iterate, it's working.
Here we are back in Canada, and I've written my answer to the question that was asked on this piece of Amazon box. I do not think that AI editing is ruining photography. It is making us faster, more efficient. Some of us might see it as a bit of a shortcut that we had to go through. We had to learn to edit. We had to put in those hours and hours and hours. And now someone can just come in and be up to speed pretty quickly in the industry. They can throw, realistically, they can throw an 85, 1.4 on their camera. They can go out in nice light, and they can now appear to be a professional photographer within moments. Is that ruining photography? No, I don't think so. Is it going to change what photography potentially is over time? Yes. I believe that is a truth, that we're no longer going to be able to compete just on our images alone. 4 years now, everyone has been great at photography. The learning barrier, thanks to YouTube and online courses and the advancements in technology, have really made the startup curve a lot smaller than especially I had to deal with in 2005, 2006. But just like I get to ride that wave of advancements in autofocus, and now I can shoot wide open, everything's perfectly in focus, I also get to ride the wave of AI editing, something that makes my business a heck of a lot more efficient. It's been said many times here on this channel, all around the internet, in wedding photography teaching, that you make your money when you book the wedding, when you go and you shoot the wedding. You don't make the money when you're sitting at your computer. Wow, you put 95 hours into editing a wedding. Congratulations. Unfortunately, you didn't really get paid for that time. You got paid for the booking, for the doing, but not for that back-end process. I will say this as somebody that used to put 40 hours legitimately into editing a wedding. This was before Lightroom existed, because I didn't have a Mac and I didn't have Aperture. But then when Lightroom came on the scene, it immediately sped everything up. Was that cheating? Did that make me not a photographer? Did that ruin the industry? No. That just made my workflow a heck of a lot more efficient and consistent. I wasn't opening up every single image into Photoshop, editing it, closing that image, opening up the next image. Obviously, you can see where the consistency fails there. And AI editing is just the next iteration of that. There's also no off button. You can't just be like, I don't want this to exist anymore. None of my competitors can have it, because everyone has access to it now. And I will say that it is one of the biggest advancements that we are ever going to see in wedding photography workflow in our careers. So is AI editing ruining photography? No, it's not. It's making our lives a lot easier, but it will actually change from a business sense how you market yourself. That you can no longer market yourself just on your editing or your fast turnarounds, that you now have to market yourself based on you. So that will change some things, and it'll make all of our businesses a lot more personal. But let's go back to Las Vegas.
Do you have suggestions for somebody that's maybe on the fence, that is a little bit hesitant to let the robots do the editing for them?
It's hard to say, honestly. Like, just do it. It's much faster. You can go enjoy a coffee or a drink or a stretch or 2 walks, stand up and hit a couple squats. And don't be scared of the robots. They're not gonna take your work. They're not gonna take your job. They're taking our jobs!
Yeah, it's a pain in the butt just to learn anything new in your workflow. So almost always, even if it's a product that will work better and save you time in the long run, it is going to come at a trade-off for you to like figure it out, when to like pepper it in to your workflow. It's going to cost you a little more time in the beginning, but working through those growing pains and just persevering to the end result until you kind of have the muscle memory and your whole workflow mapped out with this new tool, getting to that endpoint is so worth it. It will save you time in the long run, even if it costs you time setting it up in the short run.
So there you have it. If this is interesting to you, there's a link in the description to get 1,500 free edits to get started. That'll give you enough of a taste to know that it is the correct decision for you. You can use a few of the different talent profiles, or you can build your own. It's up to you. So head on down to the link in the description for that. And goodbye from WPPI here in Las Vegas. Lighting's better this way. Oh, and fun new addition to Imagine. It just came out today, actually. You can now do profile adjustments. So if there's a profile that you like that you want to just modify a little bit, or maybe next year you want your images to be a little bit warmer on your own profile, you can now do that. So that's awesome. Check that out. Link in the description to start with your first 1,500 edits for free.